Hello and welcome to the English Lesson Cafe podcast, where you can listen in on our conversations to improve your English. My name is Mark and I'm here with my wife.
My name is Hillary.
We are back again with more of our daily life conversations to help you learn as you listen. So Hillary, last week we left off leaving people wondering about the new addition to our family that we hinted at. And so today we're going to share what that addition was, or maybe better said, who that addition was.
So we were married in June, and then around October, I started feeling a little bit different. So I got a pregnancy test at the store, October 31st. I took a pregnancy test, and it was positive. So first thing I did was obviously tell Mark that it was positive. And do you remember what you thought, what your reactions were?
Yes, I obviously was very excited. Growing up, I always, wanted a family, so I always wanted children. So you kind of anticipate the feeling, through the years as you're growing up, what it must be like to find out that you're about to be a father or a mother. It was very exciting. Then you think, okay, now, we have to wait this, a certain amount of months.
Right.
And so as excited as you might be, it's kind of like, oh man, now I've got to wait. For my natural personality, I'm not a very patient person. That's obviously something you work on, and you don't want to be an impatient person. And I'm like, oh man, this 9 months will seem like an eternity, seem like a long time. I also had my own thoughts growing up as far as what I wanted for a family, what kind of
Obviously,
size.
right.
And so growing up, I loved basketball. So my dream was to have 5 boys when I got married and had children. And so, that wasn't the first thing that came to my mind. But I'm thinking, all right, I'm on my way to a basketball team.
Well, I did not care whether it was boys or girls, but when we first got married, I wanted 8 kids. And so we both wanted a larger family. We didn't want to just have 1 kid or 2, which would have been fine if that's what the Lord had blessed us with. But we both wanted a large family. So I do recall the first people that we told were your parents, and your mom encouraged me to take another pregnancy test. And I think she even did another one after that. And so all 3 of them came back positive. Then she encouraged me to contact the midwife, who was a friend of your family. Do you want to tell us something about that?
Yeah, so in terms of a midwife, this is an interesting conversation I have sometimes with my English learning students as well. In the United States, it's typical to give birth in a hospital. When I talk to my students and we talk about siblings or having children or whatever, I've asked, were you born in a hospital? And the response is, of course I was born in a hospital. I'm like, well, what about your parents? Of course they were born in a hospital. And in my mind, I'm thinking, that might not be the case. Then I will ask the student to go ask their parents, or to ask their grandparents, or ask about their grandparents. Because in my mind, knowing other countries around the world, it's maybe more common to have a child at home as opposed to a hospital, whether there's no hospital available close by or they just decide to have it at home. And so one occasion, it was pretty cool. The student comes back from going to ask their mother, and I'm like, what did you find out? They're like, they were born at home. And they said, I never knew that. So a midwife is someone who is the person responsible for medical care for the expecting mother, the pregnant mother, and then for the delivery in home or at a location other than the hospital. We had some history with having children at home in some of my family. I was born in a hospital, but was seeing some of these other family members who had home births with a midwife. We decided to go that route as well. We didn't drive. I'm not talking about driving, going that route. But in decisions in life, we can say, I decided to go this route in terms of a job or relationship. So in terms of giving birth, we decided to go the route of having a midwife. in having the baby at home, giving birth at home?
Personally, I had no experience. I had not talked to anyone at all about having a baby at home. I hadn't heard any stories about midwives or knew any in my own personal life, but Mark and his family had a relationship with the midwife and her family. Then his mom encouraged me to call her, and that would be the next steps to find out what needed to be done. And so Mark's mom called her while we were together and told her what was going on. And I remember that Mom told her that I had taken 3 pregnancy tests. And I remember she said, "Why in the world did you do 3? You only need 1." And so that's one of my favorite memories from thinking about that first time that I was pregnant. And Mom's like, "Well, we just wanted to be sure." So all 3 pregnancy tests were positive. When she told her that, she had us set up a time to come and see her so that she could see me and see what was going on.
There are times people do take pregnancy tests and they say they're positive, and they might take multiple tests at different times, and they're not 100% accurate.
Right, exactly.
And so whether they say it's positive and it's not, or they say it's not positive, again, it is.
False positive.
False positive.
And so you can get a positive pregnancy test, but it's not legitimate. When I've gone to the doctor in the past, they have taken a pregnancy test and then did a blood test as well, because the blood test is more accurate. So you have a higher percentage rate of it being correct than you do with just an at-home test.
A higher accuracy rate.
Right. Well, the first meeting with the midwife, she asked me several questions, and then it was determined that our first child would be born on June 23rd. And if you remember on our other podcasts, our anniversary was June 22nd. So his due date was actually the day after our first anniversary. So Mark was telling you about midwives. I have talked to some of my friends in recent times, and they have used midwives. And so when they would mention a midwife, I said, "Oh, so you gave birth at home?" "No, we gave birth at a birthing center." And when I heard about this for the first time, I had no idea that there was even a thing called a birthing center. But it's a big place, like the hospital. It's huge. And there are many rooms, just like a hospital. Midwives come there. And so they work with you and do the birthing the way you want it to be done. They don't have all the strict rules that they do at a hospital. So you get to make more of the decisions. So midwives nowadays don't just work from home. They work from home, and they can also get a job in these birthing centers. I enjoyed having the midwife and being in a home, but I'm thinking that a birthing center would be an obvious second choice to that. So we continued our monthly visits with the midwife, and she was measuring me and talking to me, and we were doing different things at each visit just to make sure that I and the baby were doing okay. Around March, she measured me and found out that I was measuring large. And so she started asking about if there was a family history of twins. My dad is a twin, so I told her yes. She talked to Mark, and his mom happened to be there. His mom told her that there was a history in their family, on her side at least, for twins. It kind of gave a little bit of excitement that we might be having 2 babies instead of 1. But she said she only heard 1 heartbeat, so she wanted to get it checked out. Since she did not have the availability of an ultrasound there in her home, obviously, she sent me to a center where they do have an ultrasound. We headed to the ultrasound center. We stopped and ate beforehand. And when we stopped to eat, obviously, when you're pregnant, you have to go to the restroom just about everywhere you stop. So I'd gone to the restroom, then we left to go to the ultrasound place. That becomes important as the story continues. I go in to have the ultrasound, and the ultrasound technician asked me, "Have you emptied your bladder?" Asking me if I'd used the restroom, and I said yes. And she continued to look. I was looking at the screen as well. By the way, were you back there when they were doing the ultrasound? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember that.
I was looking at the screen, and all I could see was black. And then I saw the baby for the first time. That part was exciting. So the baby was doing well. She measured the length and the weight. And then she said that I needed to go see a high-risk pregnancy doctor because there was something that she couldn't really discuss with me at the moment, but I needed to see a high-risk pregnancy doctor. So we had to schedule another appointment with another doctor to find out what was really going on with my stomach measuring larger. And he told me that I had a cyst that went from the bottom of my stomach up to my diaphragm. So it was really big. And the next thing he said is that we have to get that out to give the baby room to grow. What were your thoughts when you heard that?
It was concerning. I wasn't scared. Wasn't really worried. I had full confidence in the midwife, and I was trusting God that He is in control of everything. And so that's why I wasn't worried about it. Whenever somebody goes in for any kind of an operation or surgery, there's always that level of concern that elevates.
So he scheduled a surgery for me, and so we had to remove the cyst at 28 weeks. I was 28 weeks pregnant with our child. And this might be a good time to say we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
We chose not to find out, and we didn't want to know. We wanted to be surprised. So I went in, and they were measuring the baby. They were listening to the heartbeat and doing all these things pre-surgery just to make sure everything looked normal. And as a pregnant woman, you get your weight checked just about every time you go to see the midwife, you go see a doctor. They always want to make sure that that you're gaining enough weight, not too much, not too little. So I knew exactly how much I weighed pre-surgery. I went in for the surgery. I woke up, and obviously everything was done by that time. They said that contractions had started, so they gave me some medicine to stop the contractions because the baby was still too small to be born as healthy as they would like for it to be. So then he came out to see you. That's the story I remember hearing from you, that the doctor came out to see you after the surgery. You and your parents were sitting in the waiting room.
Yes. We were sitting in the waiting room, and the doctor comes in, and he calls my name and says, "Hey, can you come with me? We can go talk about everything." And, you see movies and TV shows. It's always that get the family out of the waiting room and take them to a private room. And in TVs and movies, nothing good ever comes from that. Let's go to this room and talk about something. So through the whole process, I was fine. And then when he came in and said, let's go talk this other room, it was like, oh no, that was the kind of an oh no moment, because you have this preconception due to what the cultural aspects of life, watching TV or movies. And that's always the worst part of the movie. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, can you please come into this room and we can discuss, or let's go meet in this room. And then there's nothing said. Nobody's talking on the way to the room. So you're like, what's this good news? Why can't a doctor come out and say, everything's very good, went well, but I want to share some more information with you in this other room? So that was probably the worst part about the whole scenario. Then, of course, we get in the room, and he's like, everything went great. Okay, thanks. And it's not that I was nonchalant about the whole process. It's not that I was cavalier about the whole process. I trusted in God, and I believed that things were going to be good and that everything would go okay. And it did. And so I knew that, God was still in control, and that He would be there whatever the news was.
Well, after I came to my senses and everything was settled, they told me that they had taken 5.5 liters of fluid out of this cyst and then took the cyst out. So as soon as I could get up, my mother-in-law encouraged me to get on the scale because she said, wow, you look different, as soon as I stood up. They brought some scales into the room, and I stepped on the scales, and I was 14 pounds less than what I was before surgery. The doctor said, look, I know you wanted to have this baby at home, but because of all that's happened, I won't approve of you having the baby at home unless you get to 37 weeks. So 37 weeks was this big date. If we can make it to there, we're good. In the meantime, I think it was about a week after the surgery, I started having contractions again, and our midwife told us to go to the hospital and get checked out. So she told us to go to the emergency rooms. They put the heart monitors on to make sure that the baby's heartbeat was okay, and gave me some medicine to stop the contractions. We did that and went back home for maybe 2 weeks. And then I remember being at home and I started feeling terrible. I think my fever got up to 104. We were off to the hospital again. So that time I had either a kidney infection or urinary tract infection. I had to stay in the hospital that time for a couple of days until they got my fever down and got everything regulated. And again, I started having contractions. So they had to stop those again. That is when we decided to stay at the midwife's home, which was closer to the hospital in case I had to come back. And so we just brought what we could and stayed there with her. So I stayed there at her house with my mother-in-law while Mark went to work.
Yeah, the closer we got, of course, the more excited I got. And the closer we got, the less I wanted to be away. Here's a little secret. I actually wanted to be able to deliver the baby myself. I really did not want to go to work because I thought, man, wherever I'm at, I know it's going to be a situation where I'm not able just to like jump in the car because I have to take care of something. I did not want to miss the delivery. How cool would that be? That I could tell myself, hey, I delivered you, So something, it wasn't necessarily a bucket list check off, but it was one of those things that not everybody can say they've done.
Right. Rewind just for a moment. Since we didn't know if this was a boy or a girl that we were going to have, we chose both boy names and girl names. So pretty early on, Mark mentioned Sarah Grace for a girl. And I was like, oh, I love that name. Actually, I had already picked out a girl name many years before, Caitlin Brooke. And then when Mark said Sarah Grace, I liked that one better. So we went with Sarah Grace. So it was going to be Sarah Grace if it was a girl, but we could not agree on a boy name. We had the hardest time. Everything I would say he didn't like, everything he would say I didn't like. So we went to church on Wednesday night, Bible study. And Mark's dad is teaching about Caleb and the Bible, crossing the Jordan River. Then we got home, and I wanted to tell Mark so bad that I liked the name Caleb. And before I could say one word, he looked at me. He's like, I've got it. And I said, what? And he's like, Caleb. And I said, I was just going to tell you the same thing. I like the name Caleb. So finally, we had agreed at least on one. And he's like, what about Caleb Jordan? Because Caleb crossed the Jordan River. I'm like, that sounds awesome. So we had agreed. Sarah Grace, Caleb Jordan. So then we come down to this getting closer to the due date time. We might have even been at the midwife's house when you asked me this.
Yeah, I don't remember.
You came over and you're like, would you be okay if it's a boy, if we named it after me? I was like, no, that's fine. So now we're changing gears. And so we have Sarah Grace if it's a girl. And then we decided to do Mark Joel Gould Jr. if it was a boy. And then what are we going to call him? Because I call you Mark, and if I called him Mark. So then we decided to go with Mark Jr. We get to June the 4th. June the 4th was 37 weeks. And so we had made it to the day that we could actually have our baby at home. And so that was exciting. And then June the 5th comes, and Mark goes off to work as usual. And I'm there at home at the midwife's house with my mother-in-law. And around 3 o'clock, I started having contractions. I'd been having them all day, but around 3 o'clock, they started to be more consistent. And the midwife came over and she's like, you better call Mark. And so we called Mark. What were your thoughts?
I was like, woohoo, I get to quit working. No, it was actually, and I think there had been a couple occasions where, I think it's going to happen. And I would kind of get excited at work. And then either I left and came home. I think there was even an occasion where I might have prepared to leave work, and then I got a call, no, everything's okay. And then it's like, okay, back to work. I think I know what I was doing that day. I was remodeling a door, refinishing it.
So around 3 o'clock, we called Mark. He got there. And then at 10:10 p.m., we had our first baby. And I don't remember who said it's
and join us for the next episode. No, just joking. Not going to leave you on the hook for that one.
Mark's mom, our midwife, and Mark were there with me. And then when the baby was born, Mark's mom said it's a boy. I remember for a little while I didn't hold him because y'all were trying to get him cleaned up and everything.
I was giving him some basketball practice.
And they went to weigh him. And he was so tiny. He weighed 5 pounds and 5 ounces. He was so small. But he was almost 3 weeks early.
But it was a fantastic delivery. What kind of, now, did you have any drugs? Did you have any shots? Did you have anything?
I had nothing. I thought it was going to be worse. But I think with him being so small and then being in mid-push and not stopping, I was in shock, I think. I sat up for a moment and was just staring. And he didn't cry.
No.
When he was born, he did not cry at all.
No, this was the funniest thing to me was this little guy was just so funny. You know, he's everything. Thank the Lord. Praise the Lord. Thank God. He is healthy. Hillary's healthy. It was a successful, healthy, safe delivery. That's obviously the first thing that goes through your mind. But then, no joke, here he is, his first moments in the outside world, in this new environment. And in my mind, I'm always thinking about babies when they're born. They're just kind of maybe crying, not really, their eyes maybe not open, or they're, just kind of, I just had this picture in my mind of what, most babies are like when they're born. But for Mark, as soon as he entered the world, his eyes were wide open.
So alert.
So I started moving back and forth, and he was just like watching me. He would follow me around the room, and all I could think of was, there's a perfect picture of somebody seeing something new for the first time and just being totally amazed. And I know this was not going through his brain, but the look on his face, looking from the outside, looking at him, and him just kind of scanning the room like, where am I now? What is this? This is great. And that was kind of the feeling that I had looking at him. And the funny thing is, that's his personality today.
Still today.
It's like, what's next?
And for me as a mom, you always hear, when you hear that first cry, they're healthy. He did not cry for hours. He'd been checked out by the midwife. She said he was healthy. Everything looked good. But yes, he was very alert. He is still that way today, just taking everything in. He enjoys everything to the fullest.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he's going to play golf or if he's going off on a train. He's enjoying everything to the fullest.
Yeah.
All of his life, he's been that way. One of my favorite pictures of Mark Jr. is when we went to the aquarium. He was born in June. My birthday's in July. And Mark had wanted to take me to Gatlinburg, which was close to our home. And there was an aquarium there. So we had Mark Jr. with us, and he was only a month and a half old. And we went to the aquarium. And my favorite picture, I'm holding Mark and letting him see the sharks. So he and I both are looking at the sharks, and his eyes are just as big as they were the day he was born, looking at those sharks, and his mouth is like in an O shape. So it's almost like he knows exactly what he's looking at, that this is something amazing.
Yeah. That was kind of fun taking him there, because whatever he did really notice, and what he didn't notice, I don't know.
Right.
But he was looking all around at all the fish and following the sharks in the tank. He was.
The funny thing is, now he's very interested in all marine life.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, if you could connect that, and now he actually went to an aquarium as a summer volunteer a few years ago. So it kind of came full circle with that. Do you remember one of the things he used to say? He wouldn't just say, I like you, or I love you.
Yeah.
What would he say?
I like you, I love you, you're my best friend. It's just a little guy. Just, I don't know, whenever he could start talking or whatever. And very early on. And of course, we show a lot of affection to our kids. We love our children, and we'll hug them and tell them we love them. and always have, and still do today. And he would say, "I like you. I love you. You're my best friend."
To everyone, to me, to you, to his grandparents, to his cousins, his uncles, aunts. It was just the sweetest thing. And we didn't teach him that. It's not like we sat down with him and said, "I like you. I love you. You're my best friend." He picked that up on his amazingly. I mean, all children are amazing, but he was one that just caught on to everything so quickly. Yeah. He was just boom, boom, boom. It didn't take him long to learn things. One of my other quotes of Mark's that I like so much is he was probably about 8 or 9 at this time, and he came over to me and he's like, "So I was born on June 5th. And I said, "Yes." And he's like, "Your and Dad's anniversary is on June 22nd. And I said, "Yes." And he's like, "You only had to live a year without me." He has his fun side where he's like totally into Batman at 21 years old. He just turned 21 about a month ago now. So yeah, at 21, he's still into Transformers and Batman and playing video games, things like that. But he's a hard worker as well. So he goes to work every day, gets up early, does his job, comes back home. His coworkers and his boss have complimented him. He's a good all-around kid.
Yeah, from day one, it's almost like he's been an extrovert. It's like he was just ready to be there and be involved with whatever's going on. So he's a great son to Hillary and I, and an incredible addition and part of the family. And he's just a fun person to be with. Some people talk about their child as they never walked anywhere, they're always running, and he did. He was just like always run. As I said at the beginning of this, I always wanted 5 boys so I could have a basketball team. And his favorite thing from a very young age was a ball. That might have been one of the first words he ever said.
First word was
ball. First word. And he loved to throw a ball. He loved to bounce a ball. He loved to, whatever way he could play any kind of little sport, even though it was not on a team, obviously at an early age. He loved to play catch. He loved just to roll the ball. He loved to do anything.
He caught on to sports really quickly.
Yeah, he caught on real quick, yeah.
He would not crawl, but then he started walking. But by first birthday, he's running. At his first birthday, even a lady in our church recently, because we were talking about his birthday, she mentioned that she remembered his first birthday and giving him a ball and watching him throw it and run and get it, then throw it the other direction.
That's right.
And run and get it. I know he's mine. I might be a little biased, but I think he's a great kid.
So we could go on all day talking about Mark, and we'll have other occasions to. I'm sure I'll have him on an interview, and we'll talk about things, and that will be a fun conversation to have, a fun episode to make. We're very blessed, and we're very thankful for God's gift of Mark to us. We'll leave you with this, that not long thereafter, there was another addition to the family. What may that be? Or who may that be? So join us for the next episode, and you will find out the next chapter in our life. We're glad to have you here with us, whether you're listening in your car, at home, while you're jogging, at work, wherever you may be. Maybe you're somewhere giving birth at this moment. We hope this has been comforting for you in this time of your life. And who knows, you may deliver a wide-eyed, extroverted child that you too name Mark. Anyway, we hope you have a great day. Thanks again for joining us. And we hope this helps you to join the conversation.